The unassuming guardian. The Helios Medical Research Station hung in space like a gleaming silver snowflake, its 6 symmetrical arms extending from a central hub. Each delicate point housed laboratories, medical facilities, and living quarters for the 300 scientists, doctors, and support staff who called it home. The station orbited the colony world of New Turin, serving as both research facility and hospital for the growing human settlement below. Dr. Elena Reyes stood at the viewport in her laboratory, watching New Turin's blue-green surface slowly rotate beneath them. At 42, she had the focused eyes of someone who spent too much time peering through microscopes and the perpetually distracted air of a mind constantly solving problems. Her dark hair was cut practically short, and her lab coat bore the subtle blue stripe of a senior xenomicrobiologist. Dr. Reyes, the cell cultures from the Proxima samples are showing unusual mitotic patterns, said Kai, her research assistant, interrupting her rare moment of contemplation. Elena smiled. That's exactly what we want to see, Kai. Those mitotic inhibitors I developed are working. If we can perfect this, we'll have a targeted treatment for the Benson's disease affecting the miners on Proxima Centauri IV. Her research had always focused on understanding alien pathogens and developing treatments that worked across species barriers. Crucial work for humanity's expansion into a galaxy teeming with microbial life that human immune systems had never encountered. What few people knew was that Elena had previously worked for Earth's Defense Intelligence Agency, developing biological countermeasures against potential alien threats. She had left that life behind 8 years ago, uncomfortable with the militarization of her research. Now she saved lives rather than theorizing about taking them. The station's alarm suddenly blared, its rhythmic pulse cutting through the quiet hum of laboratory equipment. "Attention all personnel," came Director Hammond's voice over the station-wide comm. "Unidentified vessels approaching. This is not a drill. All non-essential personnel proceed to emergency shelters. Medical staff prepare for possible casualties." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Helios was a medical facility, protected under the Galactic Concordat. No civilized species would attack it. "Kai, secure those samples and initiate lockdown protocols," she ordered, moving swiftly to her workstation to back up their research data. The station shuddered violently, throwing both of them against the counters. Emergency lights flashed on as the main power fluctuated. "That was weapons fire," Kai said, eyes wide with disbelief. "Who would attack a medical station?" Elena's mind raced through possibilities. Pirates were rare in this sector and typically targeted cargo vessels with valuable goods. The nearby Arcturian Empire was peaceful, having signed treaties with Earth decades ago. That left few options, none of them good. Her personal comm chirped. "Elena, it's Hammond. We've identified the ships. They're Syraxian." Elena's blood ran cold. The Syraxian collective was known for their advanced biological science and their belief in genetic superiority. Their interactions with humans had been limited but tense. And if they were here? "They're after my research," she whispered, the realization hitting her with terrible clarity. 6 months ago, she had made a breakthrough in understanding cross-species viral transmission, specifically how viruses could be modified to cross incompatible biology. It was crucial work for developing universal vaccines, but in the wrong hands, it could create devastating biological weapons. The station rocked again, more violently this time. The lights failed completely before emergency systems engaged, casting the lab in a dim red glow. "Security teams to all entry points." Hammond's voice crackled through static. "We've lost outer hull integrity on arms 3 and 5. Prepare for..." The communication cut off abruptly. "Elena," Kai said, using her first name in his panic, "what do we do?" Before she could answer, Dr. Maya Wong burst into the lab, her face pale. "They've breached the station. Security is engaging them, but something's wrong. Our people are collapsing. It's like they can't breathe." Elena's mind shifted instantly into her old intelligence training. Biochemical agent, targeted at humans. Maya, get to the ventilation control room. Lock it down and initiate emergency filtration. As Maya departed, Elena turned to her secure terminal, fingers flying over the interface. She pulled up the station schematics, security feed, and environmental monitors simultaneously. The security feeds showed chaos. Syraxian soldiers in sleek exosuits moving methodically through the station. They were tall, their bodies covered in a fine iridescent scale-like texture that shimmered under the emergency lighting. And where they passed, humans collapsed, clutching their throats. They're using oxygen inhibitors, Elena realized, blocking hemoglobin's ability to bind with oxygen. Standard military tactic. Kai stared at her. How do you know that? Elena ignored the question. We need to get to the secondary medical lab in Arm 6. It has isolated environmental systems. As they moved through the corridors, avoiding the main throwaways, Elena's mind cataloged everything she saw. The Syraxians moved with military precision, but seemed to be preserving key areas of the station, particularly the research sections. This wasn't a simple attack. It was a calculated acquisition. They reached the secondary lab undetected. Elena immediately locked down the room and activated the independent environmental controls. Kai, I need you to trust me. What I'm about to do isn't strictly within standard medical protocols. The young assistant nodded, still looking shell-shocked. Whatever you say, Doctor. Elena accessed a hidden partition in her personal files, research she had brought with her from her intelligence days, kept secure but accessible in case of emergency. What the Defense Intelligence Agency didn't know was that she had continued some of that research, developing it in new, non-weaponized directions. We're dealing with a hostile force using biological agents against our people, she explained while working. I believe they want my research on cross-species viral transmission. If I'm right, they'll keep key personnel alive for questioning. So what's the plan? Kai asked. First, we need to understand what we're facing. Elena activated the lab's specialized sensors. I need a sample of the agent they're using. Over the next hour, as the Syraxians systematically took control of the station, Elena worked. Using remote access to environmental sensors throughout Helios, she collected data on the compound the invaders had released. Meanwhile, she set up a secure communication channel to the surviving station personnel, coordinating information gathering. What emerged was grim. The Syraxians had released a compound that specifically targeted human respiratory function. It wasn't lethal. It incapacitated rather than killed. But it was remarkably effective. Nearly all security personnel had been neutralized without a shot fired. They're rounding up the scientists and medical staff, reported Dr. Wong through the secure channel. They're particularly interested in the xenobiology and pathology departments. As I suspected, Elena murmured. She turned to her microscope, where she had been analyzing the molecular structure of the Syraxian compound. Fascinating approach. They've created a temporary oxygen inhibitor that bonds to human hemoglobin, but dissolves after approximately 20 minutes. Can you create an antidote? Kai asked. Elena smiled grimly. Better. I can create a countermeasure. She pulled up data on Syraxian physiology from the station's xenobiology database. Though limited, it provided crucial information about their respiratory and neurological systems. The Syraxians had evolved on a high-gravity world with a dense atmosphere. Their biochemistry was substantially different from humans. What they don't know, Elena said, a plan forming in her mind, is that my work on cross-species viral transmission goes both ways. If I can understand how to protect against alien pathogens, I also understand how to create compounds that affect alien biology. 3 hours after the initial attack, the station had fallen completely to Syraxian control. Elena and Kai remained hidden in the secondary lab, which had been overlooked in the initial sweep due to its designation as simple storage on outdated station schematics. They watched through security feeds as Commander Zavax of the Syraxian forces established his command center in the station's operations hub. Tall and imposing even among his kind, Zyvax moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to victory. "Bring me the research director and the senior scientists," he ordered, his translated voice harsh through the audio feed. "Particularly this Dr. Reyes. Her work is of special interest to the collective." Elena's hand stilled over her equipment. "They know who I am. This isn't random." "What do we do now?" Kai whispered. Elena looked at the compound she had been synthesizing. A clear liquid in a small vial. It wasn't complete, but it was a start. "Now," she said, her voice taking on a steel edge that would have surprised her colleagues, but would have been instantly recognizable to her former intelligence handlers, "we remind the Syraxian collective why attacking the human medical facility was their gravest mistake." The calculated response. 3 weeks into the Syraxian occupation of Helios Station, Dr. Elena Reyes had transformed the forgotten secondary laboratory into a nerve center of resistance. What had begun as a desperate bid for survival had evolved into something more strategic as she gathered intelligence and developed her countermeasure. The Syraxians had settled into a pattern. They maintained a garrison of 30 soldiers led by Commander Zyvax, keeping the human staff confined to specific areas when not working. The invaders were particularly interested in Elena's research, forcing captured scientists to explain and demonstrate the principles behind her cross-species viral transmission studies. But they hadn't found Elena. Using her knowledge of the station's systems, she had remained hidden, moving through maintenance tunnels and unused corridors during shift changes. More importantly, she had built a network among the surviving staff. Subtle signals, coded messages in research notes, and carefully orchestrated mistakes that delayed the Syraxians' understanding of her work. "They had started testing modifications to your viral delivery system," reported Dr. Wong through their secure channel. She had become Elena's primary source within the captured sections. "They're attempting to adapt it for use against Arcturian physiology." Elena nodded grimly. The Arcturian Empire was the Syraxians' chief rival in this sector. If the collective could deploy a biological weapon specifically targeted at Arcturian biology, it would shift the balance of power dramatically. "How much longer do you need?" Wong asked. Elena looked at the array of medical equipment she had reproposed. Standard protein synthesizers, diagnostic tools, and even dermal regenerators had been modified to create components for her countermeasure. 2 more days, she replied. "I've completed the compound, but the delivery system needs refinement." The compound she had developed targeted a unique aspect of Syraxian neural physiology. Their nervous systems rely on a specialized neurotransmitter that human bodies didn't produce. Elena's compound would temporarily block the receptors for this neurotransmitter, effectively paralyzing a Syraxian without causing permanent damage. It was elegant, non-lethal, and most importantly, could be deployed through the station's environmental systems. "Kai," she called to her assistant, who was modifying ventilation filters at his workstation. "How are the dispersal calculations coming?" Kai looked up, dark circles under his eyes evidence of the long hours they'd been working. "I've mapped the airflow patterns throughout the station. We can isolate the sections where the Syraxians are concentrated and hit them all simultaneously." Elena nodded approvingly. In the weeks of hiding, Kai had proven himself more than a laboratory assistant. He had developed a talent for systems manipulation that would have impressed her former intelligence colleagues. "There's something else." Wong's voice came through the comm again, this time with an edge of urgency. "They're planning to move your research off-station tomorrow. A Syraxian science vessel is en route." Elena felt her stomach tighten. "Then we move tonight." Over the next 12 hours, Elena and Kai finalized their preparations. Using the network of allies they'd built among the station staff, they positioned the modified environmental controls and ensured all humans would have access to the breathing filters Elena had designed to protect them from the compound. At 200 station time, when Syraxian biorhythms would be at their lowest ebb, Elena gathered the core of her resistance in the secondary lab. 6 medical staff who had managed to slip away from their quarters using the sedatives Elena had provided to fool the Syraxian monitoring systems. "The compound will affect them within 30 seconds of exposure," she explained, showing the molecular structure on the lab's display. It targets the thalamic receptors unique to Siraxian neural pathways. They'll experience progressive paralysis starting with the extremities and moving inward. Respiratory and cardiac functions will remain unaffected, but they'll be completely immobilized for approximately 4 hours. What if they're wearing their exosuits? Asked Dr. Navarro, the station's chief surgeon. The compound is designed to penetrate their filtration systems, Alina replied. Their technology is impressive, but their filters are optimized to keep particulates out, not specialized molecular compounds. She pulled up the station schematic, highlighting the sections where they would deploy the compound. Team Alpha will secure the armory. Team Beta will take the command center. Kai and I will handle environmental controls to ensure complete dispersal. And then, Wong asked. Alina's expression turned grim. Then we contact Earth Fleet and hope they believe us when we tell them we've neutralized a Siraxian strike force with nothing but medical equipment. At precisely 200, Operation Nightingale began. Alina and Kai moved through the maintenance tunnels to the environmental control hub, bypassing the 2 Siraxian guards by introducing a localized dose of the compound through the ventilation of their guard post. Watching them collapse, their scaled bodies stiffening as the neural blocker took effect, Alina felt a complex mix of emotions. Part of her, the doctor, was concerned about any potential side effects. Another part, the intelligence operative she had once been, felt satisfaction at a plan executed perfectly. Beginning station-wide dispersal, Kai said, his fingers dancing over the environmental controls. Throughout Helios, the specially designed compound entered the ventilation system, seeking out Siraxian biology. Within minutes, reports began flowing in through their secure channel. Command center secured, came Wong's voice. Armory under our control, reported Navarro. Labs clear, added another voice. Alina watched the security feeds as Siraxian soldiers froze in mid-motion, their bodies becoming rigid as the compound took effect. In the command center, Commander Zavax was the last to fall, his eyes wide with disbelief as he realized what was happening. 3 hours later, Alina stood in the command center, facing the immobilized but conscious form of Commander Zavax. The Siraxian leader could move only his eyes, which followed her with a mixture of rage, and she noted with satisfaction. Fear. You're probably wondering how a medical research station managed to defeat a Siraxian strike force, she said calmly, checking his vital signs on a medical scanner. Your respiratory and cardiac functions are stable. The paralysis will wear off in approximately 1 hour. By then, Earth fleet vessels will have arrived. She leaned closer, her voice dropping. What you fail to understand, Commander, is that understanding how to heal across species barriers also means understanding how to harm. The difference is in the choice we make. Alina straightened, addressing the human staff who had gathered in the command center. Secure all Siraxian personnel in the starboard cargo bay. Treat any injuries, but maintain the neural blockers at low dose until fleet arrives. As the station returned to human control, Alina sent a comprehensive data package to Earth Defense Command, detailing the Siraxian attack, their interest in biological weapons research, and the non-lethal method used to neutralize the threat. 6 hours later, the EDS Solaris arrived, leading a response fleet that secured the station and took custody of the Siraxian forces. Admiral Chen requested Alina's presence in the station's conference room immediately upon arrival. Dr. Reyes, the Admiral said when they were alone, your file makes for interesting reading. 8 years ago, you were one of our most promising biodefense specialists. Then you walked away to pursue medical research. Alina met his gaze steadily. I chose to heal rather than harm, Admiral. And yet when faced with a threat, you developed an effective countermeasure that neutralized an entire enemy force without a single casualty on either side. Chen smiled slightly. Impressive work. I simply use my knowledge of biology and the tools at hand, she replied. That simple knowledge and those medical tools just prevented what intelligence suggests was the first stage of a planned Siraxian biological warfare campaign. The Admiral's expression grew serious. Your compound, this neural blocker, it's a game changer, Doctor. Non-lethal but completely effective. It was necessary for our survival, Elena said carefully. It's more than that, Chen countered. It's proof that humanity can defend itself without resorting to the same tactics as our adversaries. The Siraxians came with lethal intent. We responded with restraint. 3 days later, as Helios Station began its recovery, a diplomatic vessel from the Siraxian Collective entered the system under a flag of truce. The failed attack, followed by the humane treatment of their captured forces, had created a diplomatic opening that would have been impossible otherwise. As Elena watched the diplomatic proceedings from the sidelines, Kai approached her. "They're calling you the Doctor of Defense now," he said with a slight smile. "Earth Fleet is already implementing your neural blocker as standard countermeasure technology." Elena shook her head. "That wasn't my intention." "No," Kai agreed, "but you showed them something important, that human ingenuity doesn't have to be lethal to be effective. The Siraxians respected only strength, but you showed them a different kind of power." As the Siraxian diplomats finalized the terms of a new treaty, one that included strict provisions against biological weapons research, Elena reflected on the path that had brought her here. She had left the Defense Intelligence Agency seeking to distance herself from weapons development, only to find that in the right circumstances, understanding how to heal across species could become the most powerful defense of all. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "the most revolutionary act isn't developing a new weapon, but choosing not to use one when you could." In the years that followed, Dr. Elena Rice would become a pivotal figure in interspecies medical research and diplomatic relations. The Helios incident, as it came to be known, rewrote the rules of engagement in galactic conflicts, a reminder that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its capacity for violence, but in its ability to find solutions that preserve life, even in the face of those who sought to take it.